A lot of energy in the room.
So I had to guilt Mark into coming here, basically saying, I know you're going to be in San Antonio this weekend, and you'll be back here again on Monday.
My schedule.
Could you please come for Thursday for a little bit and chat a little bit about the league that is on the tip of everyone's tongue this year? So when we first started this, it was 2 years ago. In NAB, we were in a hotel room in Las Vegas chatting about the AAF. I was with a different entity at the time.
That's right, you had a whole nother job.
Yeah, it was a whole different entity. And so to see kind of the grandiose plans that we were discussing and kind of what the metrics and the unique elements that made this league different from the traditional football league that is in play, it's amazing to see how that's all literally going to happen this weekend and then kick off in 2 weeks. So, we've heard, from Charlie talk about building a league from scratch. But I want to know, what is it like to build a league from scratch as it relates to the production elements? Because to come up with a league as it relates to the operation is great, but now to essentially then throw it over the fence to you and say, all right, T-Man, I need to put 43 games on the air, figure it out.
Well, we have our first meeting tomorrow morning about it, so we should be on schedule.
Right on time.
Actually, your surroundings have improved considerably. We were at a Motel 6 that day a couple of years ago. A few cop cars outside. There was a little bit of a misunderstanding, but Ben, you've recovered very well, so things are good.
Thank you for bailing me out.
It's really exciting to be in the position I'm in. I spend another part of my life producing NFL games for Fox and for Mike Davies, as well as other things. And so that part of me, loves being in a truck on site producing a game every Sunday. But this is a different deal because this is like taking a 30,000-foot view and, like you said, putting 43 games onto television. Where are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? What's the footprint going to be? So we didn't know a lot of the answers back then, but once we really started drilling down to it, quite frankly, as soon as we walked in here, it was like, love connection. This is perfect. So you guys have been tremendous. And we made the decision, it would be easier for all of us to roll 4 trucks to every game, right? It'd be simpler for me. I know the world really well. It's obviously more expensive and all that, but there aren't as many, to quote Donald Rumsfeld, known unknowns. I don't do that very often. It'd be a lot easier for me to just do that. But as Mike and Chris and everybody pointed out just moments ago, there's a number of economic reasons why being here makes sense. But it's not just about money. There are some significant advantages we can get from basing our headquarters here instead of sending trucks everywhere. I can tell you just yesterday, we were able to get, I'll just tell you, Marvin Lewis is going to be a big part of the AAF. He lives in Scottsdale. So it was incredibly attractive to him for me to be able to say, hey, you know what? I got a game on Saturday. I got a game on Sunday. You can drive over. You can be a part of it. And you can go home every night. So that helped me get him. And we're going to be lucky to have a guy like that. So that's just one example. I think there also are some technology advantages that we're going to have. They've built a beautiful 3D virtual set here that we're actually going to be able to debut next week. And we're seeing a lot of it sort of come to fruition now. So there's a number of technical advantages I'm really, really attracted to. Like Stephen Wharton alluded to we're going to put 2 Skycams at every game. Just for those of you who don't know, we're doing 4 games a weekend, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. 2 of those games are truck games. 1 game on Saturday and 1 game on Sunday. Those are traditional trucks. Everybody's on site. But 2 games are produced totally out of here. Our pregame, our halftime, our postgame, everything done out of here. So we're going to have 2 Skycams at those games as well. And like Steven told you, we probably couldn't have done that footprint if we didn't have an at-home production solution. So there's a big advantage to us to be able to say, all right, we may have 6 or 7 cameras at this game on Sunday afternoon, but 2 of them are going to be Skycams, and we're going to play with them and evolve how we do it. That was really, really intriguing to me. And the other thing that Charlie kind of pitched me when we first came on board, he basically said, all right, you got a blank slate. This league, we own the league. Like we own the teams. So we don't have to go get 32 owners' permission to do this, and we don't have to go through a competition committee, although there are obviously a lot of football guys involved, and we're certainly not a gimmicky league. It's real football. But there are some things, some freedoms that we have that the NFL doesn't have, that a lot the NBA doesn't have. I'm sure Chris can tell you about their frustrations. Mike Davies can tell you about all the things they'd love to do on Sundays that we can't do. That does open up a few channels for us. Gives us a chance to hopefully paint a little wider brush. We're not going to have all the answers week 1. Like this is, you have evolving up there. Well, you had in the last one. That's a great picture of me, by the way.
Mine's better.
I don't think I have any, actually. Yeah. But this is an evolving landscape, right? So when we debut next week, we're going to hopefully be a hell of a lot better 10 weeks later and be pushing the technology even more. That's really our goal. My favorite expression, sort of one of the things I kind of live by is if you're not ready to embrace change, then you're really going to love irrelevance. I mean, you're going to just love it. And so those of us who are in sports production, like I love being in a truck on Sunday or any event and producing that event. I got the talent there, the whole thing. It's I love doing it. But this at-home production thing is here and it's been working and it's here for a reason. If we don't look at that and see the efficiencies and find ways to try and push it forward and make it even better, then you're just being stupid, just putting your head in the sand. Television is going to pass you if you don't find a creative way to make this stuff really, really sing. So that's why I'm excited about this. If I'm watching a football game or a basketball game at home and I see that the talent aren't there, some of the hardcore fans probably are like, oh man, you can't send them to the game. But overall, like you guys said, overall, people want to watch the football game. And I think, being able to put quality people on the game and maybe people you wouldn't have gotten if you weren't here in a home-based production probably makes your show better. So that's been the thing that's been really, really, intriguing to me and something I find really, really enjoyable. There are some things that right now we're going to do a big rehearsal this weekend. There are some things I'm sure Tom Carlisle can tell you. We don't know.
We'll find out.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
Part of that's exciting. Part of that's scary. Hopefully in 2 weeks we won't have a lot of those I don't knows. It's a project that I've never been a part of before. Being able to try and build something from the ground up, something that we all are really proud of. I think the quality of football is going to be really, really strong. We certainly have a lot of really, really impressive NFL people working on it. So I feel good about what we're going to be able to put on TV. And now it's our job as storytellers and as producers and directors to try and make it look as good as possible.
And to build on that, so obviously you do a lot of work with Fox, and you have not an embarrassment of riches, but you have pretty much any resource that you want and any camera.
Mike gives me anything I want.
Exactly.
Mike, right?
I didn't want to sign that check already. But with that in mind, when you head to the remote production world as a producer, are you going to sit down and say, damn, I wish I had that angle, or I don't have that? Or are you going to say, you know what, I need to get smarter about how I cover the game and tell the story, given the fact that I've got fewer camera feeds, fewer graphics, fewer resources to utilize?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's the good news is our Remy productions are going to have roughly the same amount of cameras as our truck games. So we're not talking about a significant fall off in camera quality or coverage quality. But I think the biggest adjustments for the announcers, really.
Yes.
Because an announcer is used to being in the booth and he's got his binoculars and his spotter and he can look at the field and that's how they do it. It's harder to call a game off a monitor. We are looking at some ways, I've done these before, and we are looking at some ways to make our announcers a little more comfortable, giving them the all 22 at all times. They can feel like they're at the field. There's some different monitor feeds they'll want, just like we were at a game, to try and make them feel more comfortable, but ultimately they're not there. So I think they have the biggest adjustment, a little bigger than a producer would. I think the producer and director, from our perspective, not being there isn't quite the handicap it is because you're in a truck anyway. So whether you're in a truck or a studio, you're still inside. You're not on the field. Problem solving gets harder though.
Yes.
If there's a problem at the site and we're not there, that gets a lot harder.
Absolutely.
So certainly communication is going to be really important. Quality control is going to be really important. But I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think we're going to have issues with the coverage of the game. I think that's, producers and directors will be smart about how we're going to cover the game based on if we have any limitations or if, like I said, we have the same footprint as the remote game. So I'm hoping that our two shows will look very, very similar.
Understood. One thing that I'd love to kind of build upon, and it was mentioned in the earlier panel, is consumers become very, very smart. And one thing that the AAF is really priding itself on is offering a second screen experience that's dedicated to the consumer that is completely different than what the current NFL offers. Without kind of giving away all of the secrets, how are you going to balance the production of the live game in addition to the supplement that comes with the second screen experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we certainly want people to have the app and to be to be interacting with our game while they're playing the app. And there are a number of things. I don't want to get into too much detail about it yet, but there are a number of really, really cool features, including an actual animated version of the live game that we're very proud of. That's I think going to be very, very cool. We have chips on all the players, and we're able to track where they are. And instead of watching a very, very rudimentary version of Gamecast, you're going to see something that's much, much better. I think a significant step forward as far as the data points and the telemetry and all the kinds of things that you guys would want to see. I think we're making a lot of progress there. So we're certainly, and there's also like there's a gaming aspect to it, like a Clash of Clans. We want people to form alliances and play the game along with watching the game. So we're certainly hoping, and this is me just with a 40,000-foot view of it. The app and the data guys, led by a guy named Eric Schwartz, they're really, really smart, and they've got some great ideas. I just sit back and go, let's talk to Eric about that one. I think the app and the game hopefully will have a very good intersection and we'll all feel collaborative. That's our goal. I don't know if we'll be there right away on day one, but we certainly want people when they're watching the game to interact with the app more so than people do now, which I feel like when people second screen now, a little bit of what was talked about before as far as watching maybe just the Skycam angle, it's a little bit more of not a gimmick, but it's a little bit more of a niche. I find myself, if I'm watching a sporting event, if I'm second screening, it tends to be more, I'm on social media, seeing what the instant reaction to the game is. It's less about the game. Like I'm watching the game on TV, but I may not be second screening the game with my tablet or phone or whatever. I'm hoping that with the app we have, more people who are watching our game will actually second screen with the game, as opposed to having your phone and just kind of casually watching the game and texting your buddy or tweeting about something. I would rather they be on our app, and hopefully it'll be sticky enough and that they'll want to do it.
Absolutely. So we mentioned kind of evolving over the course of the season. Week one, we're looking to make sure we're sending signals, everything's good, everything's clean,
right.
Everything, the at-home consumer can enjoy it. What are some of the things that you would love to see evolve over the course of the season to start to do in week 7, week 8, week 9 that you didn't think was possible in week 1, as you kind of unearth more of the technology and the understanding of the remote or at-home model?
So without giving too much away, and
I'm sorry for digging deep on that.
We're gonna crawl and walk before we run for sure, and it's a good question. There are certainly some data things that we're looking at, hardcore, about being able to predict things and probabilities and various items like that. That hopefully by the middle of the season we're really pushing the envelope with being able to see the kinds of things that maybe you haven't seen on a live broadcast before. That's one thing. There are some things we're talking to Stephen Wharton and his group about evolving the way we cover the games. As I mentioned, we have 2 Skycams at every game. In some cases, when we're doing the at-home productions, we're only going to put 1 camera up top. Normally, for those of you who may not follow football coverage, most productions have 3 cameras across the top to cover the game. And a lot of ours, we're going to put 1. And we're going to have 2 Skycams. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to cover every single play from behind the offense. That's been done a little bit. And Steven, those guys do a great job. However, if it's like a 30-yard pass or a 40-yard pass down the middle of this field, it's hard to tell if he caught it or not, right? So as a viewer, it can be a little frustrating. So our goal is not to just say every play from Skycam behind the offense. Our goal is to try and think about different ways we can use the Skycams, plural, to see if there's a way that we can show it differently than what everybody else has been doing. So we're going to experiment with this, and I think by the time we get to the middle of the season, I hope we'll have, a really interesting plan. But we'd like to see the Skycams where, on the sideline, in a very intimate play-by-play, integration. They can do that. It just, obviously you can never cross the streams, because there's a lot of wires up there and they can't cross or they'll go right down. So it's complicated. And we have to play with it and really work it. And we're going to work it this weekend. But there are a lot of things those cameras can do that right now, producers like me and our executives are a little reluctant to get super adventurous because, number one, the Skycam behind the offense is a great look. And as a producer, when I have it, it's an excellent replay. It's excellent. And then being able to put it over top of the offense in 3rd and short, it's great. And actually, I think audiences have sort of almost come to expect it.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
And you should expect it. Like, that's what you should expect. I do think, though, that there is room to try and innovate a little bit. And I know Steven's into it, and our directors have talked about different ways, and I'm pushing everybody to try and be a little different, but smart different. We don't want to just be gimmicky. Like, I don't want to just put cameras where no one's seen them because we want to be a gimmick. Like, that's not at all what we're doing. We have to still give people a version of this game that feels like the DNA of an NFL game. Because, like you said, everybody said, consumers are really smart. And if we try to give them a half-assed product that feels like a bunch of little PTZ cameras put in 30 different places and it doesn't look good, then we're going to be justifiably embarrassed. And that's not why we're here. So I'd probably give you those two things. It's an evolution of data, and it's an evolution of how we cover play-by-play from angles that are not disconcerting, but you'd look at it and you go, oh, that's pretty cool. I haven't seen that before.
Very cool. And you mentioned this earlier that, since we are actually the league, the AAF is the league, you are part of that. You're not kind of a broadcast entity that's serving a higher entity in the NFL.
Right.
What about that is the most exciting part for you?
Well, yeah.
I mean, as a producer, to essentially say, you know what, week to week to week, I'm changing storylines not at the game level, but at the league level. Is that something that's encouraging, or having all of the power of God, if you will? Is that something that's kind of frightful at times?
Well, we don't really have that, but I will say this: for years, Bill Polian was the co-founder of the league, and he's obviously a Hall of Famer, and when you work on the NFL side, it was hard to get Bill to say yes to anything.
Yes.
And he'd probably be the first one to tell you that. But when we did the draft show back in November, it was the first time I ever had all 8 coaches in the room and the GMs, and they had to listen to me. I got to tell them exactly where to go, what they were doing, where they were going to interview. That was pretty cool. That's not something you get a chance to do on the NFL side all the time. But I just met with Bill and Charlie just a couple days ago about some things we'd like to do with audio and where we want to put our cameras. And it's nice to be able to sort of go right to the guy.
Yes.
And because we own the whole thing, because we're all one group going one way, Bill was like, hey, you should try that. We're going to try and do something with replay challenges that I think is really, really different. I don't want to spoil it here, but if I get my way, replay challenges are going to be really cool.
Yes.
And it's possible the NFL will say, wow, we should really do that. People really love it. So things like being able to look at a challenge and think about how we could cover that differently. How can we put, we're going to put mics on the head coaches and the quarterbacks this weekend and do it live. One thing that always has bothered me, and I told Bill this and he agrees, is, we do a game on Sunday, right? Or a Saturday college game, whatever. But then, especially for the NFL, you get off the air on Sunday, you fly home, and then Tuesday you see the Inside the NFL version, the NFL Films version, right? Totally different game. Totally different game. Because you hear everybody talking, you see what they're saying, right? And it's just not the same thing. So I would love to be able to try and give viewers that same experience. So now, obviously, there's language issues. Guys get frustrated. But being able to use the mic on the Skycam, being able to tap into the head coach quarterback communication without giving away strategy. There's a push and a pull. Those are things that we are probably going to be able to do to an extent that you wouldn't even be able to get in the door with the NFL.
Absolutely.
They just won't let you do it.
Absolutely.
And I get why they won't. But with this league, we do want to push the envelope a little bit and try to give people something that they don't see when they watch football on the weekend.
Awesome. Last question. This has been great. Honestly, I've been working with T-Man and the rest of the AAF crew for the past couple months, so I've been fortunate enough to sit in on some conversations that are very unique. What's the one thing that you're most excited about for the 2019 AAF season? I'm sorry, that's a loaded question. I'm sorry.
It's a really good question. I think I'm really excited for February 9th.
Yes.
I've been a part of it for not quite a year so far. And it's amazing when you first jump on board and there's a lot of energy and excitement, but it's not a real thing. That's not a real thing. But as we've gone through the days and the months, and every day we see that clock count down, there's a big thing in the office, how many days until we launch.
I hear from Tom and Rodney every day how far are we out. So the first thing I hear from them every morning when I come in.
We're a week and a half away, 2 weeks away. So I really think the thing I'm looking most forward to is February 9th. Literally, right when we come on the air, it's going to be Jamie Erdahl and Kurt Warner with the pregame show, and they're going to be on for half an hour, and then we're going to get to the game, and it's on CBS, and it's going to look like a CBS show. A lot of work has gone into getting that show on the air on February 9th.
Yes.
Now, conversely, I'm going to be just as excited the next day, probably tired, but just excited on the 10th when we debut out of here.
Yes.
Because it's just a really important weekend for us. And, I'd have to say that 95, 96% of our energy and our attention is focused on February 9th, kicking that night off. A lot of people, hopefully some of you in this room, really miss football when it's gone. And, spring leagues have come and gone in the past. We all know that. They've all been competitors to the NFL, and they've all had major problems. This one is not an NFL competitor. It's a complementary league. It's got a lot of really impressive people attached to it. I think this league has as good a chance as any to really have some legs. Yes. And that's why I got involved. And I'd have to say that all my attention's on February 9th. I hope we have 2 great games. There's 2 games being played concurrently that night, the only night we do it. I'm hoping it'll be a great night of football, and I'm hoping people will say, you know what? I'd like to spend some time with those guys every week.
Absolutely.
I'll be happy then.
And we're excited to have you spending time with us for the next 10
Thank
weeks.
You, Ben.
So it's absolutely, it's great. And
hopefully you'll say that in April.
Well, it's fun. I've got the beds are downstairs on the first floor, so we'll be obviously here for a long time. But no, we're very thrilled and very honored that you all would choose this and the unofficial AAF headquarters, if you will. Yeah. We're going to have a lot of people in and out here, studio show as well. So we're very excited to take this step with you all. And again, honored and looking forward to a successful 2019.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, BG. Thanks, everybody.